Hello, everybody, and welcome to the fourth episode of the BadMotoGP-Show. We are reviewing some amazing races in Argentina. So, Keelin, you enjoyed the races?
Yes, hello everybody. Welcome back to episode 4 of the Bad MotoGP show indeed. And my God, did Termas de Rio Hondo deliver? They didn't deliver on Friday, quite literally, but what we lost in the first day, we more than made up for in the first two. And I think it's fair to say we loved every minute of it, Leo, did we not?
Yes. For me, the 60-minute practice sessions were a bit strange because they were a bit long, but as long as it's just practice. But the races, they were amazing. So let's jump into the
Oh,
MotoGP race. Aleix Espargaro winning his first race in his 200th Grand Prix. Amazing. His performance was dominant from start to finish. He had some mistakes here and there, but was able to recover them instantly, which showed me that he had a great pace. So, how do you view this?
Oh man, what a weekend for Aprilia. I mean, for the love of God, I'm sure we'll get on to him in a minute, but even Maverick Vinales was doing good, so that tells you all you need to know. No, man, congratulations to Alicia Spargo. What a brilliant race and what a brilliant weekend as well. I mean, Alicia literally dominated every single session, which is just so strange. But boy, does he deserve to have his first win, you know. He has sacrificed about 7 years of his MotoGP career with Aprilia, working on the bike, making it into the beast it is now. And he's finally got his just reward. It was so great to see. It really was heartwarming. I was scared he was going to bin it in the last corner of the last lap, but thankfully he didn't. He got the win he deserved. And yeah, I mean, Massimo Rivola and the rest of the crew at Aprilia should be jumping up and down, and they're on top of the world right now, and they absolutely deserve to be. Alicia Spargo, massive congratulations, because boy, do you deserve it.
Yes, and I actually thought during the race that he will bin it eventually because he had some mistakes here and there going wide, and it looked like a bit to me like he was getting nervous, like the
Yeah,
pressure getting to him, but he managed to stay on top of the bike and every mistake, as I mentioned, he closed the gap within a lap or two, where sometimes he had like a half second gap to Martin, or even more, I don't know. Yeah, and he was content with staying behind Martin, which was for me the smart strategy because, as we all know, Termas is a demanding track for the rear tire. And it felt like to me that he was managing it quite good and just doing as much as he needed to do to stay in contention for the victory, but not breaking away and ruining his tires. So very mature performance as you would expect from someone who raced 200 GPs. And I'm just so happy for him because he seems like such a nice guy and he sacrificed so much. I was rooting so bad for him.
yeah. I mean, I
Happy.
couldn't agree anymore with what you've just said, Leo. I mean, for those of our viewers, I hope everybody's watched MotoGP Unlimited. I would assume you have. But I think out of all the riders in the paddock, the one who came out of it the best was Alicia Spargaro. I'm not going to give any spoilers in case you somehow haven't, but go and watch it because it really is worth watching. Just for Alicia and Aprilia, if nothing else, it really is a great story. And yes, you're absolutely right. The only mistakes that Alicia made all weekend was overshooting that damn right hand turn twice before he finally got it right the third time. I mean, Gavin Emmett and Neil Hodgson and BT Sports commentary were absolutely right. He kept trying to outbrake Martin on the way to the corner entry, which just was never going to work. He kept shooting the damn bike too wide. But finally, in the third turn, he braked with Martin instead of trying to outbrake him, which meant he managed to get that bike in perfectly and out. And the second he got in front, he never looked like giving it up, which is a sign of the maturity that you just mentioned. And by the way, how well rounded is that Aprilia bike? it looked so good. It can turn, it is acceleration. I mean, that Ducati, it was matching it stride for stride as well, which was unbelievably impressive to see. But the technical details, I'm sure we'll get onto at some point later on. The point is, Alicia Spargo, I tip my hat to you because that was a brilliant performance.
Yes, you mentioned it very, very good because he was so fast on the straight. He was matching Martin on the straight, and which allowed him to brake where Martin is braking. He doesn't have to brake later than him because the Ducati is faster. He had the luxury of braking as late as Martin, and because he was inside there, it was always going to happen. And the only mistake he made was braking too late and giving Martin the opportunity to go back inside. But man, do this mistake 20 times. If you're in front on the 21st time and win the race, you're allowed to. So, and also Maverick, he had a great performance yesterday, and he overtook a Ducati on the straight. I believe it was Marini, and the Aprilia seems to work. I mean, congratulations, they did it.
Yeah, they really did. And I mean, I got to be honest, I don't know Maverick Vinales. I've never met Maverick Vinales, but Maverick Vinales must have thought he was going through some sort of episode when he passed a Ducati on a straight of a racetrack. He probably thought, what is going on? Why am I passing somebody else? But yeah, you're absolutely right. That Aprilia looks like a serious, serious bike now. I mean, I remember we were talking about this when it came to preseason testing this year. Aleix said that 2022 RSGP feels lighter and it feels stronger. So that, I mean, there's no doubt this is the best bike Aprilia have ever produced, but Aleix could get some serious results now. He really could kick on from here.
Yes, and he is mature, he is consistent. And one thing I want to disagree with you on is MotoGP Unlimited. For me, Maverick was the winner of the series because it was so cute how he and his wife just, yeah, how they took care of their daughter, how they interacted with each other. It was amazing. So really, really happy for him as well because he had a very, very good first lap for Maverick standards, because I feared that he would drop down 10 places and we will not see him again. But he managed to hang in there, and he managed to fight for the positions, which benefited him at the end. Unfortunately, he had a little bit of contact with Bagnaia, which costed him fifth and sixth place because Binder overtook him. But apart from that, very, very good race from Maverick, and you can't forget that it's still a new bike to him. So
Yeah.
I'm happy for both of them, and I'm happy for Aprilia. Nothing to complain. Just amazing.
Yeah, it really was a 10 out of 10 weekend for them. And I'm glad you mentioned that point about Maverick because I actually agree with you, Leo. I'm not going to actually complain about that with Maverick because that's as good a result as you can expect for someone on a brand new bike, which he literally is. I think that that result was pretty much as good as he could have reasonably expected. So if you're Aprilia, this is the best weekend ever for you. And they should enjoy this because, God, they've had to fight to get here.
Yes. And I want to mention real quick that in our season preview show, I had the bold prediction of Aleix winning a Grand Prix and Maverick not finishing on the podium. So today I'm right, but I hope I'm wrong because Maverick deserves a podium. To me, he's an amazing guy, and yeah, I'm rooting for him. But at the moment, my prediction stands. But I didn't thought it would be this early in the season, to be honest. And what impresses me also is that Aleix did it by himself. There was no rain or something, no strange circumstances. There was nothing. He was simply the best man. And that makes it even better. The only thing that is missing for me is point one, that he didn't beat Jorge Lorenzo for the victory. That would have given me much more satisfaction, I'm sorry. And the other part is I would love to see him and Paul on the podium together. That would be amazing. And it was so cute to see him in the box crying and all of this. It just showed how much it meant to everybody. So happy for everybody. And yeah, I guess we covered Aprilia now extensively.
Yeah.
So I would like to head to Ducati because they had a strange weekend again. I mean, there was a bad weekend for Jack Miller, and Johan Zarco also didn't do much. And Pecco, he underperformed for his standards, but Sunday he was good. He managed to max it out. And Jorge Martin, amazing race. Can't complain, amazing qualifying. He did really good. And Marini reminded me of the Emilia Romagna Grand Prix last season, where he started from the front row and just went down. And I expected more from him, to be honest. And Marco Bezzecchi, tip my hat. Man, what a second half of the race for Marco Bezzecchi. He really impressed me there. So how do you think Ducati was this weekend?
Oh, good Lord. Where do I start with Ducati? It's kind of all over the place at this
Yeah,
point.
there's so much to talk about with 8 bikes.
Oh, I guess that's what happens when you have a third of the grid spaces with one manufacturer. I guess I'll take it from the top and we'll start with the factory Ducati team. Nightmare weekend, like you said. Really, really bad weekend, especially for Jack Miller. Jack is just, I mean, I know he finished fourth last time out in Mandalika, but he is just not having a good time. It would appear to be. Started 14th, finished 14th, never looked like having that pace, never looked like getting past anybody, and a couple of times did look like he might finish even lower. So it's a real shame because obviously I'm a huge Jack Miller fan, and it's unfortunate to see him struggling, but I just have to hope he'll get it together. I think Austin could be a good track for him. He seems to quite like it there. And obviously, that's where we head to next. So hopefully, he can get it back. But that weekend is one he will want to forget and quick. As for Pecco, I think you nailed it perfectly. Had a bad weekend as well. Just really, really struggled for pace all weekend. Never looked like touching anybody at the top of the time board. Come Sunday, he recovered it pretty well, managed to finish fifth, more than respectable considering how difficult he found it. And yeah, he deserves a lot of credit. He really does. Then on to Pramac, I guess. Johan Zarco, not a good weekend at all. Crashed out again, which just is rough for him. Seems to have gotten a lot more inconsistent lately, which he will want to cut out as quick as he can. Jorge Martin, brilliant weekend, finished second, and he really did push as well as he could. Thought he had a great race. The fact that Alicia Sparker was in God mode, Super Saiyan mode, you can't blame him for that. If it wasn't for that, he probably would have won again. So great weekend for him. And then on to Signores Marini and Bezzecchi. Marini, I think your summation of that was the best. Definitely Emilia Romagna Grand Prix. Started near the front, dropped down kind of in the midst of those places, but finished okay. And then Marco Bezzecchi was a real, real surprise. I was watching the race back earlier just to make sure I'd seen everything correctly. Went out so far wide in the first turn. I actually think he was out by the sponsor paint. That's how far out he was. And he came back to finish the way he did. It was absolutely brilliant. This is the Marco Bezzecchi we know and love from Moto 2. The guy who can face that difficulty and comes back gradually and finishes in a great position. So definitely a mixed bag for Ducati this weekend. If you're Jorge Martin or Marco Bezzecchi, you're very happy. If you're anybody else, you're pulling up your bootstraps for Austin.
Yeah, and we missed the team, Gresini, which, Fabio Di Giannantonio, he's a rookie. You can't blame him for his crash. I mean, it is what it is. He's a rookie. But Enea Bastianini, he has the GP21, which was the best bike last year. I expect more from him, especially if he has the goal of winning the World Championship. But it was overall a bad weekend for Ducati. Exception is Jorge Martin and Marco Bezzecchi there. So I don't know how to judge it because they are running all different variations of the bike seemingly, and
Yeah.
sometimes Pecco is good, and then Jorge Martin and here Joan Zarco are good. I mean, free practice here and there, no? You know what I mean. And you don't see a straight line of where Ducati is going, which kind of concerns me, which brings me back to the point. Yeah, exactly. You don't know where they're going, which brings me back to the point if 8 bikes is maybe a little bit too much for a manufacturer. I don't know, but especially with 5 factory bikes.
I think it's way
difficult.
too much for
Yeah.
one manufacturer. There's no way you can manage that. Because, like you said, you made a really good point before we move on really quickly. You've got different riders using different generations of bike. And not only that, they're using different configurations on those bikes. Some of them have different engines, some of them are using different tire setups. There's no way to manage all of that in one weekend. It's far too much work. And they've got 3 managers in Gigi Dall'Igna, Paolo Ciabatti, and Davide Tardozzi. Even those 3, as brilliant as they are, you can't expect 3 guys to manage 8 bikes and deal with all that. It's madness. I think they've overburdened themselves, and that might be their downfall this year.
Yes, I would like for next year to have 3 factory bikes there. Just one at Pramac, 2 at the factory team, and the other get the year-old bike, because you can manage to produce parts of the old bike, but you can't develop with so much input there of 5 different riders. Imagine you're an engineer and rider A tells you, okay, the bike is missing front grip, for example. I don't know. And the other one, rear grip. The other one is pissed off with the engine brake. You don't know what you're going to do. And just to listen to Pecco and Jorge Martin there, because they're your future, is unfair towards the other riders. So I'm not happy with Ducati, even though Pecco did damage limitation, and I'm happy with his Sunday. But if you told Pecco before the weekend, hey, you will finish 5th, he would have probably said, And if you told him you will finish 5th yesterday morning, he will probably say, yeah, that's great. More we can't expect more. So yeah, Ducati, there's just so much, and I hope they'll figure it out. But right now, it's just madness, as you described. Going to brand, which isn't madness at all, is Suzuki. They had a classic Suzuki performance, very unspectacular, but very solid. Nothing special there. There was a part during the race where the commentators were saying, okay, now Alex Rins is in 3rd place after pole crashed. Leaders, watch out. Yada, yada, yada. And last week or in Qatar, I don't remember exactly which episode it was, but we talked about Suzuki, of course. And I mentioned that the race pace that they seemingly have is just a reputation they're living off from 2020. So, and yesterday showed again that, yes, they had a great race. I don't want to complain, but this narrative that the Suzuki has such an amazing race pace towards the end, it's simply gone. Is it bad? No, because they had a great race and Alex Rins seemed to figure it out to not crash, and Joan Mir is just doing Joan Mir things. Nothing special, but nothing stupid. And yeah, if I'm Suzuki, I'm happy, because with performances like this, you win the championship.
Yeah, I mean, it's how Joan Mir won his world title 2 years ago. Consistency over spectacular. It is a tried and tested formula. I mean, Alex Rins and Joan Mir are a bit like Ricky Bobby and that other guy in Talladega Nights. They are shake and bake. They just basically carry each other to the corresponding positions. Yeah, I mean, very good weekend for Suzuki, finally getting some consistency back. I mean, in the first couple of races, Joan Mir's been in the wilderness. He hasn't been anywhere to be found. And Alex Rins has kind of been Alex Bins. He's been crashing it all over the place. Thankfully, he did stay on his bike and he finished on the podium, which he desperately needed. You were absolutely correct in that. He could not have needed that anymore if he wanted to. So important for him. And Joan Mir got some good points on the board. So it's a great weekend for Suzuki. Like you said, and I'm really glad you made that point as well about this race pace myth that they're living on from 2 years ago. It is that, and it's nothing more, because I do remember whenever Paul crashed out and Alex obviously moved up into the last podium position, I saw that in my commentary as well with obviously BT Sport. And they said, watch out, Alex Rins is closing here on Martin and Alicia Spargaro. And Alex never really looked like getting close. He looked pretty happy to be in third. I will admit he maintains his tires very well, but this notion of race pace, of actually challenging for the winner second, it just isn't there. Yes, Joan Mir was doing that a couple of years ago, and he was doing that very well when he won his title. He was getting thirds and seconds and so on. But this notion that they have the race pace to challenge, it's nonsense. It really is.
Yes. And Suzuki did something really impressive, which was overtaking a Ducati on the straight. And yeah, I mean, they have a new engine and it's seemingly working very well, but you have to realize that it's still a inline four and nobody expects them to overtake a Ducati on the straight. And maybe it's the sacrifice they made to have the engine power and don't have this race pace at the end anymore, but it's working out great for them because they're qualifying good and they're having solid performance after solid performance, getting the max out of each weekend. And if you do that in a season which is chaotic like this one seems to be, you can very, very well end up in the first or second or third place in the championship. We don't know because it's such a chaotic championship this year, but yeah, that's pretty much Suzuki. There was this narrative that Alex Rins was just crashing because he didn't have the engine power and he was pushing so much in the corners. And today he's proving that this was the real reason, and good for him. I mean, solid performance for Suzuki. Nothing to complain, but again, nothing special.
Yeah, it's like that. I remember the very first episode we did the season preview. It's like you perfectly said. They're solid, but they're not spectacular. This is what we expect from Suzuki. And I'm really glad you made that point about the new engine as well, because this might actually end up being a very good compromise for Suzuki. Generally, Joan Mir and Alex Rins are very good at being tire conservationists. They're very good at keeping their tires intact towards the end of the race. So if they're sacrificing that on the bike for more power from the inline, that might actually be the key that Suzuki have been missing to move up a couple of spots by the end of the race. Just wanted to say I'm glad you made that point because that could end up really making the difference.
Yes. And if I'm Fabio Quartararo, I'm looking at Suzuki and I'm looking at Honda because Fabio is such a great rider and Frankie is too. And they're just suffering from Yamaha because Yamaha is so bad. I watched the onboard for Fabio where he overtook Zarco, and it's difficult for him to get to a Ducati and overtake a Ducati because it's a Ducati and he's riding a Yamaha. And as soon as they hit the long straight, Joan Zarco blasts by, and it's got to be so frustrating. I feel so sorry for him because he deserves better. Frankie deserves better. And if I'm Frankie and Fabio, I would look at other manufacturers because this is just getting ridiculous with Yamaha.
Yeah, it couldn't have said it much better. I think you've just made an excellent point there. Man, do I feel sorry for Fabio and Frankie. They're such they're literally world championship riders with Morbidelli and Quartararo. And every time they're on that bike, every advantage they make up, second it comes to a straight, Ducati walks past them, Honda walks past them, now the Aprilia walks past them as well.
Suzuki.
And even the Suzuki, you're absolutely right.
Everybody.
Literally every bike on the grid is now walking past the Yamaha on the straight. And if you're the world champion, the reigning world champion, how pissed off must you be that your bike has regressed when everybody else has gone forward? There is no excuse for this. I mean, imagine you're Fabio Quartararo, right? Last season, you win the world championship. Ducati do the clean sweep, MotoGP, World Superbike, British Superbike. They all win it, great. You go to Massimo Meregali, right, Massimo, we've won the world title. Get me more power. I can't hold off Ducatis forever. I cannot hold off the V4 forever. And he's done nothing. That bike is worse than it was last season. It is slower. It is slightly worse to turn as well, I think. What is going on at Yamaha? Leo, maybe you can explain this to me, right? What is going on at Yamaha? They haven't done anything. They've Fabio's gone out and won a world title for them, something that hasn't been done since Jorge Lorenzo 6 years before. Why aren't they listening to their riders?
I mean, it's not just Fabio. It was Maverick.
It was Valentino.
Valentino. Probably Jorge as well, but I don't know. But everybody who rides a Yamaha says, okay, it's a good bike in the corners, but it's garbage on the straight and you can't overtake. When you ride a Yamaha, you pretty much have to qualify in the front row, have a good start, and then from there on have 5 banger laps when nobody can touch you, and then you're good, like Fabio did last year. But this isn't happening in 2022 in the MotoGP, where everybody is capable of winning a race. I mean, we had 9 different podium finishes in 3 races. This is so competitive, and you can't get away with this to say, okay, we just have to qualify on pole and have 5 record-breaking laps. This is just too much to ask for, or to be asked as a rider, you know? And I mean, even the satellite Yamaha, they are garbage.
Oh,
I mean, Darren Binder, he's a rookie. I don't want to hate on him too much because he had a solid performance, finished a little bit behind Remy. It is what it is. But Dovizioso, he had some issues again. And even Yamaha, they can't build a fast bike, and the bike isn't even reliable. So what the fuck are they doing?
That's literally the $1 million question, Leo. I mean, like you just said, all right, they can't build a fast bike. I can kind of understand that because you have to sacrifice somewhere. But now the bike's falling apart as well. Andrea Dovizioso had issues with his front ride height device from the beginning, and he had to retire. Darren Binder, I'm not going to hate on him because he is still a rookie in the class. Whether he should be there or not is a different debate. The fact is he's there and he's using what he can. And he's not being given anything. He's doing the best he can. Like you said, he finished just behind Remy, which I would expect from Darren Binder on an inferior bike. But I got to be honest, Leo, Yamaha are going to face a revolt at this point, surely, from their riders. I mean, look, Franco Morbidelli, amazing team player, always has been. Didn't even kick up a fuss during the rider negotiations when Vinales left. But he's got to be unhappy with that bike. He must be. And as for Fabio, words defy me. They really, really do. If I went out and won a world championship on that bike and they didn't listen to anything I said and the bike was worse than the one I won the title with, I would want out and I would be listening to what Suzuki and Honda are putting out there because you can't blame Fabio. He's done everything he can.
Yeah, and Fabio is an amazing rider. And you have to ask yourself, is Yamaha A too arrogant to listen to the riders and just think, okay, our bike is so good, we don't have to listen to them because they're just garbage, or aren't they just capable enough? Which both is bad. So if I'm Frankie, I'm Fabio, I will head the fuck out. And here, Darren Binder, he's probably just happy to be there. And if I'm Andrea Dovizioso, I would question if I want to do this anymore. So imagine Yamaha has 3 new riders next year. You can't develop a bike this way. And who wants to ride for Yamaha now?
Boom. That is my question. Even if they do leave, which is very possible they could, who's going to want to ride that bike? No one's going to want to see every other bike in the grid walking past you on any straight that you get onto, because you may as well just give up. There is no point. And like you said, you made such a great point there that I want to mention before we move on. There's only so many races where you can do 5 record-breaking laps and qualify on pole of the front row in order to stop V4s breathing down your neck. Something's got to be done, because Yamaha are in a they are literally the worst bike on the grid right now, and they're meant to be the best. So that tells me somebody's lying. Either the riders are lying, which I don't believe, or the technical team and the team managers are. And I think it's the team managers. Lynn Jarvis, Massimo Merigali need to get their heads out of their asses and start fixing that bike, or they're going to be bottom of the pile quickly.
Yes. And just one note there. I don't know which contracts are in place with the riders when I'm saying they will need to head the fuck out. So don't come at me with some contracts. I don't know. But I'm pretty sure Fabio is a free agent by the end of the season. And I would assume Frankie is too. So like everybody is. So yeah, just metaphorically, I will head the fuck out. If they have a contract, of course they stay, but it is what it is, you know? I would just want to add this as a clarification there before we head to the next manufacturer. I guess our Yamaha rant is now over, which would be KTM. And KTM wasn't great. I mean, Binder was a bit underwhelming because yes, he finished in 6th place, but if you are competing for the championship, you have to be at least contending for the podium. You have to be there with the Suzukis. And for me, it's not necessarily the 6th place finish, it's the gap to the Suzukis, where I would think and I would hope that KTM and Suzuki are kind of at the same level. And yeah, let's see how it develops, but it was okay for Binder, not good, not bad, a little bit underwhelming for me, from my expectations, but nothing really to complain about. And yeah, Oliveira is kind of the new Maverick, I guess, because one day he's unbeatable, even last season he's unbeatable, and from one day to another he's just in P15 or whatever, nowhere to be found.
Yeah, it really is the curious case of KTM. It's very hard to work out. Brad Binder was a bit like Bagnaia in that Sunday was damage limitation, which to his credit, I think he did a very good job of. 6th place is no disgrace by any means at all, but you are right, it is the performance. The performance is what's concerning. Oliveira, yes, he is starting to become a bit like Maverick Vinales, finishing P13. Nothing close to being good enough. I think he knows that. I know we know that. The thing with KTM is, for those of you who are watching this who might be F1 fans, KTM should be striving to be like the McLaren of MotoGP, and that they are the bike that you look at as being the best of the rest. There should be 1, there should be 2, and then there should be KTM. And it's kind of like a lull now between KTM and Suzuki, because both bikes are good and then they're bad. And they are literally directionless. They're all over the place. And right now, Brad Binder is carrying that team. You know, he did great last time out in Mandalika. And 6th place here is very, very good as well. But yeah, Oliveira is in the wilderness right now. He needs to come back, and he needs to come back at Austin to get some season momentum going. I'll briefly touch on Tech 3. Our moral champion, of course, Raul Fernandez, P16. Great job. Our Lord and Savior, Remy Gardner, still recovering from various injuries, 17. Again, he's a rookie. I expect that from both of them. The fact that they finished is impressive when so many higher, more experienced riders didn't. And yeah, KTM are just a bit meh at the moment.
Yeah, the rookies, I'm very pleased with their performance. I mean, they didn't gain points. Okay, it is what it is, but they finished the race, they gained experience, and that's pretty much all you can ask for. And then you can see over a season how they develop, how they close the gap to the front, and everything's fine from both rookies there. Again, Brad Binder, fine, but Miguel Oliveira is just a disaster. And as you said, Brad Binder is carrying this team right now because you can't depend on Miguel Oliveira because he's one day very good, like in Indonesia or last year in Catalonia or Sachsenring. And yeah, it's just a shitty performance from him. And if I'm KTM, again, I'm asking myself, okay, how much is there to be gained from Miguel Oliveira? I think we saw kind of his ceiling.
Yeah, I actually think that's a good way of putting it. I think we've seen what Miguel Oliveira is capable of, but we've seen what we're going to get from Miguel Oliveira. And in case you don't understand why I was waving my hands around there like I was having a seizure, I wasn't. Thank you for asking in the comments, I'm sure. The point is that Brad Binder, you will always get this. He will always be a 7 to an 8 out of 10, which is what you want. Whereas Miguel Oliveira can be a 10 out of 10 one week and then a 2. 10, 2, 10, 2. And that's, if you're challenging for titles and you're challenging for constructors' titles, you can't have that. You just cannot. And I like Miguel Oliveira. I think he's a really, really good rider, but he's just so inconsistent. It's not even funny. And that's why I think the Maverick comparisons are now accurate. Maverick Vinales at Yamaha, 1 week he's a title favorite. Next week he's revving the bike because he can't get it to do anything. And that's what Miguel Oliveira is starting to become like. He's starting to just go up and down and up and down, and he's got to get it together. And you're right, KTM and Pit Byrer will be looking at Miguel and thinking, how much more is there to gain here?
Yeah. So how much more is there to gain from Alex Marquez?
There was never anything to gain to begin with. Let's be truthful here.
I mean, he was world champion. He did in 2020 some good races, but the issue I have with Alex Marquez is that seemingly he's developing backwards. Because in 2020 he was a rookie on the reps, all okay, cool, but he had some great performances. He was on the podium in Le Mans. He was contending for the victory in Aragon. And last year, he did one kind of good race in Portimao, but I don't remember another good performance from him. And right now, he's just so far off the pace. And I don't know what to say, except that he will be there as long as Marc Marquez is at Honda. Because if I'm Honda and you take out the Marquez name there, Alex Marquez isn't just delivering. As the same with Taka Nakagami. Everybody is talking about Ayogura moving up to MotoGP and replacing Taka Nakagami. But before I would replace him, which on a side note I will be replacing Alex Marquez because he isn't any good, and I don't see there any development, which is more concerning to me than a 15th place.
Yeah, I mean, it's just hard to add anything to that because, look, Alex Marquez is a world champion rider. He literally is. He's won Moto2, I think, twice, if I'm not wrong, but he definitely won it the season before. This is the thing with Alex Marquez. As good as he is, and I very much give him his fair dues, he's there because of Mark. Let's just be truthful here. We all know it is true. You know, thrown into the reps.
Sorry to interrupt you there, but I don't know if he's there because of Mark. So yes, kind of, the connection is there, but he did good in Moto2 and he did good in Moto3, so he deserved that seat.
He deserves to see in MotoGP.
Yeah, yes. But I believe he is staying because of Mark. This is the difference.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from there. To be totally honest, I think Honda have done wrong with Alex from the very beginning.
Yes.
Look, he was thrown into Repsol because of Mark. I kind of get that. But what you should have done from the beginning was make it clear he was going to LCR and that he would be developed to eventually go to HRC. You don't just throw him straight into HRC. That's madness. Why would you do this?
Yes.
But yeah, you're absolutely right. Look, Alex Marquez has had a couple of really good performances. You mentioned the podium in Le Mans absolutely correctly. And you mentioned the race in Aragon, I think last season, and Portimao as well.
2020.
Or 2020, you're absolutely right. And yes, those are 3 good performances. But 3 good performances every 2 years is not enough. I'm sorry, it just isn't. There's riders who were released at the end of last year who were more deserving of staying in the championship than Alex Marquez was. In my opinion, Iker Lecuona, I would have kept him and given him another chance. Personally, I'd have let him stay. Yeah, I'd have moved him to Yamaha over Darren Binder. But if you want to keep him in the championship, give him an LCR seat, give him a chance. Javi Vierge in Moto 2 with Petronas, I'd have kept him as well. And then they both went off to World Superbike and they're doing their thing now. I think both with Honda, actually. The point is this.
Yes, they're in the factory team.
That's right. They're both in the factory team. And the point is, Alex Marquez has to start delivering. And if he's not delivering by the midway point of this season, expect an announcement that Iagora is going to the LCR team, because Lucio Cecchinello will always give his riders a chance, but there's only so far you can go before enough's enough.
Especially when Honda is paying for all these bikes. And I mean, they're riding factory bikes. And if I'm Honda, I will move Chantra and Ogura up, because we will talk about them in a minute when we head to Moto 2, but they're just amazing. And one last thing about Honda, which is Pol Espargaro. He is really good this season. If he doesn't crash, then he will be probably on the podium, maybe top 5. I don't know how his pace would develop, but I'm very, very happy with his performance and his development on the Honda. But the crash is unacceptable. So you have to stay on the bike, especially in a chaotic season like this.
Yeah, absolutely correct. Look, Pol Espargaro had a great weekend, great qualifying, great pace all weekend. I got to give him credit. But you're right, there's no excuse for that race result. You've got to play it smart. Just race with your head. Come home, get the podium, get the points, bang, no one's talking about it. Instead, Paul did what Paul always does. He went out hot-headed, leaned the bike over too far, bang, he's out of the race, no points again, and we're talking about the fact that Pol Espargaro can hardly finish a race. And that's a shame, because I really like Pol Espargaro, and I think I think the adjustment he's made in this season's Honda is remarkable. I really, really do. But he's got to start finishing more races, and he's got to race with his head. You got to race with your head, Paul, or you're just not going to do anything at all. So on the one hand, I give him a lot of credit, but on the other hand, he's got to mature. He really does.
Yes, because let's be honest, worst case scenario for him was 5th place. Let him get overtaken by Alex Rins and Joan Mir. What do you do? Okay, you're 5th, 10 points, 11 points for the championship. Take it. You had a good race in Qatar. You had a meh race in Mandalika, but you're still in contention when you gain these small points, because after 3 races, the leader has 45 points. Celestino Vietti has 70. So it's much more competitive and much more equal this season than it was, for example, last season. So just be consistent. Every rider has to get it into their heads. Be like Alex Rins. Never thought I would say this, but be like Alex Rins.
I never thought we'd say that on this show. Be like Alex Rins.
Yeah. So I briefly mentioned Celestino Vietti, so I would like to head to Moto 2, which amazing, but the big talking point there was the Fermin Aldeguer crash. How did you see it?
Oh boy, this is a difficult situation. First of all, I'm so happy Fermin Aldeguer is okay. That was one of the most sickening high sides I have ever seen in my life. Not because of the ferocity of it, but the directioning of it. Man became a helicopter, Leo. He used a bike to become a helicopter for about 3 seconds. It's insanity out here. But yeah, glad he's okay. Glad he didn't break both his legs and probably his back as well. He was having an amazing race up until that point too, by the way. 16 years old and leading a Moto2 race. Incredible. Just props to Fermin Aldeguer. But then on to the crash, as you rightfully said. And I got to be honest here, I've looked at that from every angle I could find and probably some more. And I got to be honest, I'd punish Celestino Vietti. I'm really on that verge between racing incident and punishment. But the more I look at it, the more I see it the way it is. Celestino Vietti shoots it wide, okay, no problem. People do it all the time. He opens the door for Fermin Aldeguer. He goes through the door, as you would expect. Then he does a Darren Binder from last season, comes flying back in and shuts the door again when he opened it. As far as I'm concerned, it was an accident. I understand that. I certainly don't think he intended to do it, but it was reckless racing and it was dangerous racing. And Fermin Aldeguer could have and arguably should have been seriously injured from the resulting high side. And when you take all that into consideration, even though I love Celestino Vietti, when you take all that into consideration, Celestino Vietti should be punished for that. I really do. I think it's too serious to be a racing incident.
I believe it's a racing incident because, as you mentioned, Celestino Vietti went wide. He did a mistake there. But the second to last corner is a right-hand corner, and you have to ride it really narrow to gain all the speed, to carry the speed through the last corner, which is kind of like a small left-hander. So he had to bring it back as far as he could. Because of this, I understand why he behaved like this. From a theoretical perspective, I would say he made the mistake. Therefore, the racing line belongs to Aldeguer.
Yes.
In a perfect world, this would be like this. But there are those circumstances that I mentioned, which tends me to believe that he didn't want to, of course, because it could have gone either way, but he had pretty much no other choice than to go back to this racing line. And Fermin Aldeguer was the rider behind, and he should have known that Celestino Vietti will be coming there to this line because he had to take the corner, which kind of speaks to the inexperience he has. And therefore, I don't want to blame anybody there because I think it's just a racing incident and you can kind of explain both ways, but I wouldn't punish Celestino Vietti for it. Nevertheless, it's unacceptable that this happens because the incident with Chandra kind of sums it up how to do it in a better way, where Chandra was looking because he had more experience. He saw the crash right in front of him. He knew what could happen. So he looked left, saw Celestino Vietti, and they kind of arranged each other through these two corners and without any contact. So it's like a 50-50, maybe 55 to Celestino Vietti, 45 Aldeguer, because I think Aldeguer was missing this little bit of experience there, and he just saw the gap and took the gap like he would if the corner was going left and then straight acceleration, because Celestino Vietti could not be on the outside of the corner because he would miss all of the acceleration though. And so he was in kind of a weird place there, you know? But to me, therefore, it's a racing incident, and I'm extremely happy that Aldeguer wasn't injured. And this looked bad. And yeah, learn from it, come back stronger. There will be enough tracks where Fermin Aldeguer can show his potential again. So I wouldn't punish Celestino Vietti there.
Yeah, that's a really interesting explanation, and I certainly like where you're coming from on it. But there's one question that I have, and I actually would like to hear your answer on this. So we agree, Celestino Vietti's gone wide. No one's going to argue that.
Yes.
We agree the racing line belongs to Fermin Aldeguer. No one's going to argue that.
Kind of.
Yeah.
Because of the circumstances, that there's the left-hand corner right after the right-hand corner, Celestino Vietti hasn't any choice just to come back or sacrifice like 2 or 3 seconds. So I don't know if the racing line in this instance belongs to Fermin Aldeguer 100%. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I guess my question is, say you're Fermin Aldeguer, okay? Vietti's gone wide, racing line's kind of there. It's sort of a gray area that the racing line's there. would you let Vietti come back in front to keep going?
Yes, because
Yeah, okay.
let's say they manage to go side by side through the corner.
Yeah.
Then the next corner is the left-hand corner, and you can't overtake him on the outside.
Yeah.
So I would take the second place right behind Vietti and challenge for the lead on the next lap. But again, I've never ridden in this instance. You have not, and it's difficult to say from the outside because you would have to ask a rider how they would see the situation, because it's such a complex situation because of the many circumstances. But from the outside, it's easier said than done. But I would be, as I, of course, I know the outcome, and Fermin didn't in this situation. But yeah, from my perspective, I would say, okay, second place, head towards the start and finish straight, and maybe launch an overtake into the first corner because Vietti maybe has a bad acceleration. You don't know. But yeah, easier said than done. It's totally difficult to judge this. Because of this, I would say racing incident, and hopefully this answers your question.
Yeah, I appreciate the response. I certainly see where you're coming from, and I can agree with that, I guess. Yeah, I think if it had been a right-hand corner onto the finishing straight, it would have been a totally different discussion.
Yeah, of course,
But you
totally
are right. The fact that it's a left-hand turn, I can see where you're coming from. I'll give you that.
It makes it really, really difficult to judge, and I'm happy with the decision that this is a racing incident.
Yeah.
So I want to briefly discuss Honda Team Asia. I already touched on it before because they're doing an amazing job. Chandra, again, totally didn't see this coming. And Ayogura, he needs to sort out his qualifying, and then he can contend for victories.
Yeah, I mean, Honda Team Asia have become the KTM IO of last year with Messrs. Gardner and Fernandez.
Not as
they, well, yeah, kind of, but they've
stormed
90%. 90%, yes, pretty much 90%, because they obviously both haven't won a race yet. But
Chandra has won last week, 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, both of them haven't won a race.
Okay.
Yeah. But the point is, they have stormed into this world championship with a vengeance, and they just look like they've been brilliant, but they look like they really could challenge for the title.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's way too early to say. I'm not saying they will, but Ayagora and Somkya Chantra have been nearly untouchable. I mean, Chantra has not finished any less than second, so he's automatically better than Marquez's 2019 title season. You heard it here first. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. All you Marquez stands, yeah, come at me. Somkya Chantra's better. Yeah, no, but in all seriousness, what a great start to the season for them. They have been really, really good.
Yeah, and I'm happy for MotoGP in general, because it's good for the brand if not every winner is Spanish or Italian. I don't know if they can challenge Celestino Vietti because he seems to be on a different level. And but yeah, apart from this, or maybe Celestino Vietti relives Lorenzo Baldassari season, you don't know. But yeah, from this perspective now, he looks untouchable. But he is, apart from Vietti, Chandra is really strong, and Ayogura also very, very talented. Needs to sort out his qualifying, and then boom, race win, easy.
Yeah. If Ayagor sorts his qualifying out, he will win multiple races this year. I have no, second thought about saying that. Somkya Chantra just looks so comfortable in that bike. He looks confident, he looks calm, he looks collected. And Honda Team Asia could do big this year. And I really like the point you just made there, Leo. It would actually be great for the championship if Honda Team Asia did as well this year as they look like they can. Because it's nice having someone not Spanish or Italian winning something for once. I wish there was someone Irish winning something for once. Sadly, I don't think I'll ever see the day. But the point is this: It would be brilliant for the championship if they could, because it would inspire people and it would let them know that people from all parts of the world can come and they can dominate and they can win if they want to. So I love the point you just made.
Yeah, and it's amazing that all the hard work then that Idemitsu and Honda is putting with the Asian Talent Cup is coming to fruition. That's great to see. It's great for the sport. And yeah, there are some kind of honorable mentions that I want to mention because before we move to Moto3, which first of all, Pedro, very solid. He's a rookie. Bad Saturday, good Sunday. Can't ask for pretty much more than what he delivered on this Sunday. And I'm really, really excited for him to go to Europe. And the second one, Sam Lowes, he was disappointed yesterday, he was pretty slow. And also Bo Snyder, he did a good job. I'm happy for him.
Yeah, love the honorable mentions. I really do agree with him. Lord and Savior Pedro Acosta, shout out. Had a really, really great Sunday. Yeah, love the merch. You see, Pedro, get us the clothing and we will represent you. You know what it is. Yeah, Pedro was a bit like Brad and Pecco in the Premier class. Sunday was a bit of a recovery for him, but he just did so well. You know, to finish where he did such a really, really great job. And that's the sign of a champion. It's the sign of the Joan Mir type champion, where consistency is what gets you the title, not just domination. If anything, Pedro Acosta is showing how well-rounded of a rider he is, because he's mature enough to know when to take the points and the positions instead of risking it all. So I'm very happy for him. Like the Sam Lowes mentioned, had a bad-ish start to the race, but got better as it went on. Bo Snyder did a really, really great job as well. So yeah, love all those.
Yes, so let's talk about Moto3 because it seemed like Moto3 went back to normal with absolute carnage. At the beginning, I thought the Aspa boys will work together and break away. I already saw it coming, but it didn't turn out to be true. And poor Izan Guevara was unfortunately forced to retire because of a technical issue. But yeah, absolute carnage, so much to talk about. I don't want to get in every detail because we can talk 3 hours about Moto3. But yeah, the big thing is, of course, Aspar. Ethan Guevara, very, very strong, but unlucky. Again, this season, he had two kind of unlucky weekends, which was Qatar and, of course, Argentina. And yeah, Sergio Garcia was very, very good. He looks like a man on a mission. He was so impressive.
Yeah, Sergio Garcia looks like a man possessed at the moment, having an unbelievable start. He's come out like a firecracker at the start of the season. And like you said, that Aspar team just looks so, so good at the moment. I mean, like you said, Izan Guevara, great weekend all around, actually, and was only hampered by the technical issues which forced him to retire. If Izan had been able to keep going on that bike, he could have been on the podium himself as well. That was very, very possible. Sergio Garcia, just another brilliant race. Not much more I can say in that. Just look cool, calm, composed. And that Aspar bike, he looks like he's been riding it for 10 years. He's been absolutely brilliant. He's been so smooth on it. And he's going to be a real, real threat for that title this year, if not the favorite for many.
Yeah, favorite for me is still Dennis Foggia because he had an amazing performance again. And it felt like the last corner, or second to last, to be correct. It felt like if you're playing in the NBA and you play perfect defense and LeBron James hits a jumper over your head where he was simply better. And Sergio Garcia in this corner was simply better. I believe Dennis Foggia isn't even mad because he knows he did everything on his limit, and if he could have gone back in time and ride this corner again, he would have probably done nothing different because it was just good for him, and Sergio Garcia was just better, and it was a very, very clean and amazing overtake. I love to see it, and especially after Garcia had to overtake Tatsuki Suzuki, just to gain the kind of lost time you lose during an overtake, during those fast corners is impressive. Of course, the slipstream kind of helps, but it's still impressive. And to bang this one inside of Dennis Foggia was, you couldn't have done it better.
Yeah, it was a surgical expert overtake from Sergio Garcia. Beautifully done, as you just said. I really like the way you described it. And like you said, Dennis Foggia won't be mad. He will not be mad at all because he's a bit like Jorge Martin in the race in the Premier class. He did everything he could. He gave it all he could. But on the day, Sergio Garcia was just better. It happens. Some days you're the king. Sometimes, some other days, some people are just on their A game. That's the way the MotoGP World Championship works. It's definitely the way the Moto3 Championship works and has worked for quite a few years. So yeah, credit to Dennis Foggia, amazing second place, and that keeps him firmly among the favorites for the title.
Yes, and also credit for playing along, because there was another controversial overtake in Moto3, which was Masia and Minho. And Minho is by no means a dirty rider. So how did you see this incident?
Oh, that was bad. That was if you're Andrea Minho, do not look to see this replay again because it was not pretty at all. I got to be honest, I blame Minho for that. I really do. Jaume Masia went a little bit wide. If I'm not wrong, I do understand that. But Minho went in and completely rear-ended him unnecessarily. And even when they made contact, Andrea, you can break away. You can try and give it up to keep going. It's kind of like a much worse version of the Ben or the Aldeguer crash, but it's much more severe in the Moto3 case. You know, just give up the clash and keep racing. But he kept going, he kept pushing, and then they both lose out. And quite frankly, he deserved the pathetic slap he got in his helmet because it was bad. It was bad on his part, and he comes out the worse for it. I'm actually intrigued to hear what you think about this, Leo. But as far as I'm concerned, it's Andrea Minho's fault.
I disagree because I feel like Masia was unnecessarily tough on the outside because it seemed like he didn't let Minho any kind of space. And yes, it was a hard overtake from Minho, but if you're on the brakes and you are on the brakes, you can't just stop harder because it's not possible. So I can see kind of Minho's point. I don't know if it's necessary with like 6 laps to go or whatever it was. I don't remember correctly, but there was enough time, which is pretty much my point. If it's necessary, that's another debate. But I feel like Masia could have played along better on the outside. Also because there's a lot of time left, and just let him overtake you and regain the position on the long straight. So because I've seen worse overtakes where the other rider played more along than Jaume Masia did. For example, Aaron Canet against Iogura. He banked it inside there and pushed Ogura wide. Ogura kind of accepted it and gained the position back a little bit later. So especially a rider with the experience of Jaume Masia, I would expect him to realize that there's a rider overtaking you and play along a little bit more. But I'm not saying that it's Masia's fault, but also I'm not saying it's Minho's fault. I think it's kind of both again with a racing incident. And yeah, this lap was kind of funny, but I think Jaume Masia could have played there a little bit more along. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. I see where you're coming from. And I think it was really more than anything. I think it was a sign of the kind of immature almost riding we see in Moto 3 sometimes, where neither guy's just willing to give it up for the sake of pragmatism of keeping going. I got to be honest, I do like where you're coming from. I certainly think blame can be apportioned to Jaume Masia. I just approach it from when you consider controlled riding, I look at it from Minho's perspective, where he is more in control of events than Jaume is, because
Yes.
he's on the outside. he can only respond to what Mino does. Mino can't respond to what he does. He's in control. As far as I'm concerned, if you're Andrea Mino, just slow down a little bit, let him get back in, take the position again. That's what we said pretty much in Moto 2. But of course, it is slightly different in this scenario. But instead of that, Mino tries to get past him, they get jammed, and then they both fall. If you're trying to be a world champion, you've got to know when to control a situation and when to let things unfold. Mino should have taken control of that in the proper way, let Masia come back in and then go on ahead. Instead, he got too rash, too emotional, tried to prove a point, and then they both lost out. So if you think Masia is at fault, I'm not mad at that because I can see it. I just think from my point of view, if you're the rider who's in control of events, then you need to control them properly. And that's where I think Andrea Mino fell down. Not literally, he obviously literally fell down, but
Yeah.
on the moral context, that's where he fell down.
Yeah, but just to clarify things, I don't think that Jaume Masia is at fault. I think it's just a racing incident. And
Yeah,
they were both a kind of stubborn there because Minu wanted to make this move work so bad because when you go into the corner like this, it's not. I would expect this in the last lap, for example, but not in this instant. And also, Jaume Masia, he could have played along a little bit better, but no fault for Masia, no fault for Minu. 100%, they split the bill and move on. I get the feeling that Jaume Masia has this urge to prove that he is a top rider, that he went a little bit too far with the defense there. And same as Minu wants to prove so badly that he is a championship contender that he went too far there. So it kind of goes both ways. So yeah, that's just, I'm a racing incident guy. I don't want to see Minu or Masia get a penalty. To be fair, it's more likely that Minu gets a penalty than Masia. But yeah, for me, it's a racing incident. A little bit stupid from both guys. But yeah, it's also different when you sit on a motorcycle. It's easy to judge from the outside, right?
Yeah, that's very, very true. The last point that I'll make about this is the point you actually just made there now, because I really like it. I think both guys feel a pressure. And when it comes to these situations, that pressure just crumples them. And what I mean by that is Andrea Mino is a VR46 Academy prospect. Jaume Masia was teammates with Pedro Acosta last season, who went on to smoke everybody and win the title. So when it comes to these, split second moments that determine a title race, neither guy is willing to give because both guys have so much they feel to prove. And when it comes to these moments, not like you just said, neither of them are willing to give it up. And I think ego plays a little bit into that with that pressure. I think if they just relax a bit, if they just calm down, ride their race, then we would avoid incidents like this. But I do think with the pressure and the ego, this is what produces them.
Yeah, but you can't be calm and collected in Moto3. You have to be a little bit of a maniac too. So yeah, it just shit happens. I want to talk about the rookies as well. So I'm impressed with pretty much all of them. And yeah, Joel Kelso had a great Saturday. Fell a little bit behind on Sunday, but still, as a rookie on a track he never raced on before, I'll take that. Then Diogo Moreira, Daniel Algado, they did good. I'm happy with pretty much all of them.
Yeah, shout out the rookies. I mean, like you said, Joel Kelso finishing 10th, sensational result. Really happy for him. Daniel Holgado 7th, brilliant result. And then Diogo Moreira finishing 6th. The guy who is the nationality and spiritual heir to Alex Barros finishing 6th. It's brilliant. It's really, really great to see. Credit to those guys. Did a really, really great job. And yeah, they finished in really great positions.
Yeah, the future is bright. And for me, Joel Kelso is a really, really big talent. I believe that this guy has a future. He is very, 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 very good. He showed it last year. He shows it this year. I mean, there are some growing pains. And don't forget, he never raced on these circuits before. So we will see the true potential of the rookies in the European tracks where they have more experience. And I totally believe that we will get some great performances out of all the rookies.
And that's why I'm so excited for the European races. The likes of Diogo Moreira, Daniel Holgado, and Joel Kelso, we will see them unlock their true potential at the Jerez, at the Mugellos, and so on and so forth, because these are places they know and they know well, and they've won races on them. So
Yeah.
you're absolutely correct. The future is very bright, and I'm very excited.
Yeah. And don't forget Scott Ogden and Fura Sato. I don't know his name exactly, but he won the Red Bull Rookies race in Mugello in his first attempt. Furasato, something like this. I don't know. I will.
Caio Furasato.
Yeah, I will
He
get
was
his name.
picked to be Rookie of the Year, I think.
Wasn't it Joel Kelso?
Or was it Dark Horse of the Year? I think that's what it was for Caio Furasato.
I don't know.
I went really left field. I remember that.
Yeah. So I expect big things out of all the rookies. So don't forget Scott Ogden was a little bit unlucky, where he had a technical issue, I guess. And
yeah, that's right. Yeah, he did.
Just wait for the European tracks, and then we will have a lot of fun with the rookies, I guess. So we have a quick turnaround next week or this week in Austin. So I'm excited for the race, and I can't wait to talk to you in a week's time.
Absolutely. Let's hope the logistics company doesn't fuck this one up.
Better be. So
for the love of God, get DHL or something to fly everything out there. I can't take this kind of delay on Fridays anymore. I need my free practices. Come on, people.
Yeah, not these stupid 60-minute sessions. They're way too long.
It's a nightmare. It's a nightmare. But yeah, I really, really look forward to talking to you after probably Austin. And I'm excited for an absolutely insane championship round.
Yes. So thanks for watching, and goodbye, everybody.